Hello and welcome. A tragedy in his family brought him to London from his native India, and he ended up becoming one of the most respected South Asian figures in Britain's loftiest establishment, the House of Lords. This week on One on One, meet the billionaire industrial entrepreneur, Lord Swraj Paul. He was born in 1931 into a large family living in Jalandhar in India's Punjab, but the loss of both of his parents by the time he reached his teens left his older brothers and sisters to bring up the young Swraj Paul. The hard work and diligence instilled into him by his family paid off, winning him entry to the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in the USA. He returned to marry and work in the family company in India, but tragedy struck in 1966 when his 2-year-old daughter Ambika was diagnosed with leukemia. Paul moved his family to London seeking the best treatment possible, but she passed away 2 years later, aged only 4. Feeling broken and at a loss, Swraj Paul decided to stay in the UK and eventually immersed himself in work, founding and growing the hugely successful multi-billion-dollar industrial group Caparo, which is still very much a family business for the large Paul clan. Beyond his entrepreneurship, Swraj Paul submerged himself into British politics, becoming a member of the Labour Party in 1974 and remaining a staunch supporter ever since. His efforts, both political and philanthropic, have been recognised in Britain and in India, with former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, a close family friend, awarding him one of the highest national honours, the Padma Bhushan, while the British establishment gave him a life peerage in 1996, making him Lord Paul of Marylebone. He went on to become the first Indian Deputy Speaker in the House of Lords in 2008 and was made a member of the Privy Council in the summer of 2009. Beyond his business success, he's known for his philanthropy, particularly his £1 million donation to save London Zoo from closing in 1994. It was the place his daughter loved to visit regularly during her short life, and a memorial stands nearby to remind Lord Paul of the happy times they had there while she was still alive. Lord Paul, I'm really honoured to have a chance to chat with you. Thank you, sir.
No, it's nice to be here, Riz, and I mean, you are such a distinguished person to be asked to come and interview with. What a great privilege.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, especially I'm talking to one of the most influential and wealthy Indians in Britain. You've become very much a part of the system there. I wonder, being so much a part of the British culture and establishment now, to what extent does that make you feel distant from your Indian roots?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I did an interview with one of the channels in Britain. I mean, it was a profile, and rather he talked to me about India, he talked to me about Britain, and I was very passionate about it. So then all of a sudden, he says, Lord Paul, what percentage you are British and what percentage you are Indian? And my prompt reply was, I say, I am 100% British and I am 100% Indian, and if you can't add up, that's your problem. So that's how I feel. I am very, very proud of being Asian and Indian. I am very proud of being British, and both countries have been marvelous to me.
Let me take you back and ask you how life was in Jalandhar in Punjab in India, where you were born in 1931. What do you recall of the early years there?
I was born in a middle-class business family, and a simple life. Jalandhar was a very small town. The Amritsar, where your father comes from, was much bigger a town than Jalandhar. Jalandhar had 60,000 population, and but my father ran a small business, and all I know is that my family was very involved in the freedom struggle. As a matter of fact, I got my name Swraj because at that time Mahatma Gandhi had launched his SALT movement, and the slogan of the Congress party was, "We want Swraj," and Swraj meant freedom.
It's interesting, your father had started a small steel foundry where he made buckets and utensils and things. I gather he died when you were still quite young.
Oh, he died, unfortunately, when I was only 13, and my mother died when I was 7. So I was really a beneficiary of a very joint family, my brothers and sisters.
You were the 6th of 7?
Yes, I was the 6th. They brought me up, and my elder brother and my elder sisters.
How much did you get to know your mother and father in that time? What do you recall?
Quite a bit, especially of the father, because what happened when I lost my mother. I was 7, and so my father really kept me as his companion almost 24 hours a day. I slept with him in his bed, and that's the kind, because I was at an age of 7 when he didn't want me to miss anything.
Right. In terms of the characteristics of your father, what do you see of him in yourself?
I think one thing he's instilled in us, that hard work and the dignity of work should not be compromised. I mean, he used to, we lived in a typical family business, office in the ground floor. We lived on the first floor, and the backyard was the factory, a small factory. And every morning, we used to have to come down and clean the offices with the broom, which jhadu we used to call it. And so that was something which, even till today, I remember that no work is below dignity, and nobody doing any work is a person who doesn't have the dignity. You must respect people for whatever you do. And that has been the family motto, not only with me, but that is being passed on to my children, etc., and grandchildren.
How did being brought up by your brothers and sisters as happened, how did it affect your relationship with them? How did it change the dynamic in the family?
Not very much. We always lived as a joint family. So they did a marvelous job. They never allowed me to miss the parents. I mean, you can't say that you don't miss the parents, but they never sort of let me feel that.
What was the role of the family in the independence movement? You were just coming up into your teens when that was all happening.
My role was on the teens, slogans on the street. And I remember visiting my brother in 1942 when he was in jail under the Defense of India rules for fighting for freedom. And but the family was very involved in the movement.
Now you went off to study at Punjab University. Were those carefree days?
Of course, in those days, the education was taken very seriously, and every Indian family was very keen that their children study, they do better. And so education was very hard work in those days. And the way the schools taught, etc., you were morning to the evening there, and then plenty of homework, because education was taken far more seriously. And then I went to Lahore for the college, which I only finished 2 years, and then the partition happened, so I came to Jalandhar to finish it. And then my family, my brothers, I think this dream of going to MIT came.
Right, to Massachusetts, USA.
So this thing, I went to the Massachusetts, where I did engineering.
How did you adjust to that? You were doing your master's there at MIT. How did you adjust to the difference in life, being from somewhere like Jalandhar and suddenly ending up in the heart of America?
It was almost going to a new world. I mean, I did both my bachelor's and master's at MIT. And it was a great experience, coming from a small town. I spent very little time in Lahore, very protected life. And you know how the Indian families were, is so close and protected. But it was just a wide world and just unbelievable.
Let me ask you about once you got back to India and you ended up managing the overseas operations of the family business, the company, and it was the Apij Group by then. How did your Western education help in coming back? Did you find that there was any kind of clash in the way of doing things?
I think, again, that is where a family business does help you, because you want to be integrated in the family. So where could have been a clash, the other brothers did that. So it worked out no problem, and we were building a business which was quite a bit overseas, imports, exports, and that's all.
And of course, there's the very well-known and very tragic story of yours that you came to London with Ambika, your daughter. She was 2 at the time, in 1966. She was being treated for leukemia. 2 years later, sadly, she died when she was only 4 years old. You were a young man at the time. How did you find the strength to cope with that?
I think, when we lost her, the only reason I stayed in London was not because of work I wanted to do, but because I quit work altogether. I found trying to concentrate in doing anything, both for my wife Aruna and I, was just impossible. We were shattered. You live with somebody for 22 months and knowing that she is going to die is the most tragic thing which happens to you. And this is about the biggest punishment any parent can take. So I decided what we in India call sannyas. I just gave up the worldly life and went into meditation and reading philosophy, biographies. That after about a year of that gave me the courage that let me do anything. Otherwise, in London I only stayed because I wanted to stay where she had died. And I still live in the same flat.
In the same, you bought the building in the end and named it after her,
That's
Ambika
right.
House there in Regent Street,
That's
Portland
right.
Place.
Portland Place.
Portland Place. And I know at the time she loved to visit London Zoo. That was the time that she found a lot of pleasure. And you donated £1 million when the zoo was about to go under, and they rebuilt it with naming the children's zoo after her as well.
There is no better place for parents and children to know each other than a zoo. That I found with us, with the experience of Ambika. And when I go there, I talk to the parents. It's just nice to see children acting and reacting with their parents, and parents feeling so happy.
Well, Lord Paul, I have some more questions for you in just a moment. We're going to take a short break here, more one-on-one with Lord Paul when we come back.